try this a new way. I'm gonna show you the tricks that I know. I'm getting tired of talking, and I need more of a show right now. It's time that you made your mind up, 'cause lately all it ever does is change. Feels like we're only talking, going round and around, back around. I will fight like no other every day. I won't stop like the others. I will stay. 'Cause now is the right time, and I'm feeling alright. I'm playing your game like I know I can win right now. It's a final. You got me on tonight, 'cause loving you is like I'm walking a tightrope so high. I won't be turning around. No, I won't be turning around. It's the right time. You feeling alright? I'm playing your game like I will win tonight. I think I'll do it on my way. I'm gonna show you what I'm going through, get you out of your comfort zone, 'cause I need more of the truth right now. It's time that you made your mind up, 'cause lately all it ever does is change. Feels like we're only talking, going round and around, back around. I will fight like no other every day. I won't stop like the others. I will stay. 'Cause now is the right time, and I'm feeling alright. I'm playing your game like I know I can win right now. It's a final. You got me on tonight, 'cause loving you is like I'm walking a tightrope so high. I won't be turning around. No, I won't be turning around. It's the right time. You feeling alright? I'm playing your game like I will win tonight. Don't forget it. Don't forget it. Don't forget it. We'll turn this around. Don't forget it. Don't forget it. Don't forget it. We'll turn this around.
Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word, and we're live for 2021 for the first time in 2021. How are we all doing in chat? It's great to see some familiar names in there. I was going to say faces. They're not really faces, are they? They're just names. But good to see you all there. So glad to be back. We are, as somebody just pointed out in chat, about 7 weeks away from Formula One starting this season. Thanks for that. Totally bumming me out on a Sunday evening. We've got a little way to go yet, but we're getting ever closer. Tonight, we are going to talk about the 23 race calendar we have at the moment scheduled, the sprint races that Stefano Domenicali is apparently considering for the future on a Saturday. Essentially asking the question, as you can see from the title, how many races is too many races? I know there's a few of you in chat who are going to turn around and go, quite frankly, mate, I'd take 2 races, 52 weeks of the year. I don't care. But not everybody's like that. So it's an interesting conversation. A lot of things that we have to think about in there. We'll also inevitably talk about, I suppose you could say, the elephant in the room, in that Lewis Hamilton still hasn't signed a contract, and we'll probably get on to some of the things we're looking forward to this coming season. We've got some questions as well from YouTube, etc., if I remember to bring my phone in with me, which I did. So I'll try and get to those, and of course we'll come to you guys in chat as well. Oh, and by the way, chat, I'm fully aware the Virtual Grand Prix is on. I'm offering an alternative. Not many, maybe will tune in for it because they prefer the Virtual Grand Prix, but the Virtual Grand Prix is not for everybody. So, yeah, this is just something else, something a little bit different. Now, I'm going to test if this works, and I'm really hoping it does. Whole new setup with the audio. Good evening, Stuart. It's been a while. How are you?
Hello there. I can hear you, so your setup's working. It's fine.
And I can hear you, which is more the miracle, quite frankly. And it looks like chat can as well. So we're ready to go. Are you coping without Formula One? Or are you just enjoying the break, really?
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, we did need a bit of some time off because it got pretty intense trying to cram all that season in last year, didn't it? So yeah, it's I've been revising today because I haven't been following the news as closely as I would do on a normal season. I'm just enjoying the fact that you've got the Drivers' Championship up right now. Very accurate. Lovely.
Well, fun fact, Latifi level on points with Hamilton. There you go. Just to show the grid off more than anything. But yeah, we've also got with us, it really does feel like forever since I've spoken to either of you, but for some reason it seems even longer since I spoke to Dan, and it can't be. But good evening, Dan from F/1E Racing Reviews thing.
Good evening, boys. It's been a while. Yeah, another name change. I'm sure we'll have a few more this season. It's just a bit of a theme these days. But yeah, it's been such a long time. So thanks for having me, dude.
No worries. How are you getting on with that F1? I know you're probably like me, Stuart, a little bit like, where is it? But just chilling.
Just chilling. Very much looking forward to it coming back though now. Still got a month away, but I think car launches a week and a day away now with McLaren, so we're almost there. We've almost made it.
Yeah, 15th for McLaren, 19th for AlphaTauri, 22nd for Alfa Romeo, 2nd for Mercedes, 5th for Williams, and yes, I'm sad enough to know all that off the top of my bloody head. I need to get a grip. This is not good. This is not healthy. We'll start then with the calendar, really. 23 races this year. The maximum that can be on a calendar, according to the regulations, now is 25. That is apparently, according to Chase Carey, the former CEO, the hard limit, not the target. Frankly, if you put 25 races in the rules, it's going to be the target. Minimum of 10. For anybody wondering in chat, by the way, that has changed for this year. Last year was a minimum of 8. So we've got to get 10 races in this year for it to count as a world championship. Just first thoughts then, Dan. Is 23 races too many? We'll dig a little deeper into it now, but do you think that's too many races, or would you love to see 150 more?
I'm a sucker for Grand Prix, and every time they announce a new one, I absolutely gobble it up. I would love 25. In an ideal world, 25 sounds awesome. In a practical world, I think it is a little bit too much. I look at last season where, okay, we weren't racing for half of the year, but 17, I don't know about you guys, but I still feel we had a really good season last year. It felt long. There were so many stories up and down the grids. We went to so many different countries. So 25, I'm happy with it being the maximum. I certainly wouldn't want any more. But I think anywhere between 19 to 23, I think is quite nice.
What do you reckon, Stuart? I think Dan's got a point there. Last year was a bloody fantastic season. I don't know if that's because there were 17 races or it was because we went to all these new tracks and varying conditions like Imola, for example, in, what was it, November or something like that. So 23 too many for you, or would you like more?
When I was thinking about this question, I had to stop and I sort of wanted to put myself outside of my own head for a minute, because I've, thought about this a few times in the last couple of years about the ever increasing calendar and how tiring it can be sometimes. But I'm looking at this from the point of view of someone who's, this is part of my job and I have to be involved in like every aspect of it. But there are many people watching who will watch qualifying on a Saturday, qualifying on a Sunday, and that's good for them. And it's not the massive load to bear that it can be if you're just watching Grand Prix week after week after week. So in that respect, it's not necessarily too much for the fans, although I'd definitely be interested from viewers to know, like, if there were times during the Olympic year, I think, when we had that 5 races in 6 weeks, and last year we had quite a lot strung together, and I wonder if people watching were starting to get a little bit exhausted by it. And I definitely think, even though we could fit it in, and I remember a time when we were going 18, 19 races, and everyone was like, "Oh, this seems a bit much." And it turned out pretty fine. And 2021 races have also been pretty fine, seemingly. I've enjoyed it. So I'm just, as long as it's on the side that we're looking forward to the next race and we're not looking forward to the next break, I'm quite happy.
Yeah, I can understand that. If you sat there thinking, "Oh, when is this over?" Then we've got too many races, definitely. But I mean, you said there about the Olympic year and all those races in so many weeks. I think we've got something like, I think it's 9 in 11 or 12 weeks this coming season
after the break.
Belgium, Netherlands, Italy, back to back to back. Then a week off. Then Russia, Singapore, Japan, back to back, then a week off, then it's USA, Mexico, Brazil, back to back, and a week off for Australia. Obviously something that's had to be done because of obviously the current global situation. Don't know if you've heard, there's some stuff going on, and obviously that's impacted it. But that's a bit much, isn't it, Stuart? That's a lot. That can't carry on next year and the year after and so on. It's got to be something that is just for these, should we say, trying times? I like that, trying times.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, even if some of the fans can handle it and enjoy it, and just, you kind of, like Dan said, just gobble it up, take as much as they can get, that's a hell of a strain on the people actually running the sport and the teams and everybody just traveling around the world trying to pull it off. That is a big slog, because obviously, especially for them and media as well, I guess it's not just the weekend, it's the build up, it's the dismantling, it's the traveling. I don't think there's going to be a time in that there is an off day. There's not really a time for some rest and relaxation. So, and I think I know F1 don't want to do this in future. They've said that they actually want to avoid triple headers altogether if they can arrange a calendar in such a way. I think in fact, I think most of the F1 news that's come out in the last couple of weeks have come from one Stefano Dominicali interview. He was an absolute goldmine, but he definitely says he doesn't want there to be a lot of triple headers, particularly when you have them running back to back. So yeah, if it is tricky, because if you sort of cut off, if you discount January, February, and a good chunk of December, you're only left with like 39 weekends in the year. You got to have your 3-week summer break. It's fitting them all in without ramming them back to back starts to get tricky if they do want to get up to that 25 number.
Yeah, this is the thing as well, isn't it, Dan? It's you've touched on it there, Stuart, the human element of it. I know that Jean Todt likes to say, oh, I mean, a lot of fans do, these mechanics, they should be honoured to work in Formula One, so they should be accepting of the fact they've got to take all these weeks away from family. But whether it's their dream job or not, that's still a long way, potentially, to be away from, a long time to be away from family and friends, your children, for example. And, there'll be those that argue, well, it's what they signed up for, but that doesn't make it any less taxing on people, does it, Dan? It's still going to be hard, and it's we get fatigue as fans, so imagine what it's like traveling the world as a mechanic.
Yeah, definitely. And whilst, we're talking now and we're saying, oh, we're really looking forward to F1 getting going again after 2 months off, they don't stop. The mechanics are still flat out at the factory, still preparing for races. And sometimes that doesn't come across to fans, which is totally understandable. But I think you've hit it on the nail on the head there, mate. We were starting to, at the end of last year, thinking, crikey, another triple header, another one, another one. And if you're doing that day in, day out, and that is part of your lifestyle, that's going to become so, so draining. And already last year, there was talk of, oh, well, maybe in the future, if we do end up doing 23, 25 races, maybe there could be revolving teams. Maybe one team go out one weekend as a group of engineers, then it changes for the next weekend. But we're now in a situation with the sport where we're trying to reduce costs. Cost caps coming in this season, well, next season properly. And it all becomes a bit convoluted and all a little bit messy, when in reality, I think 20 races we've seen for the last couple of years has worked really well. For the most part, has given us some great championships. And it would be lovely to go to Imola, bring back Portimao, bring back Indy, have an American leg of the season. That would all be lovely. But there are only so many weekends in a season. There are actual people in these roles. So something like a revolving calendar, I'm sure we might mention a couple of other different ideas in a minute. There are other ways around it, because it is a little bit silly when you start saying that over half of the weekends in a year, not including testing, not including the winter period, is Grand Prix. It just gets a little bit too much.
Yeah, I mean, Domenicali's spoken, hasn't he, about possibly rotating with some races, so having a shorter calendar but having races on rotation. I'm not sure how that would work. Maybe like the European Grand Prix of old, where maybe some places... I don't know how it's going to work, but it'll be interesting. The thing about the legs is interesting, because if we're going to have a longer calendar, breaking it up into a European leg, a leg of the Americas, an Asia leg, that might be a way around it being so, frankly, all over the place. We said this last year, Stuart. I know we may not see it yet. We've got a long way to go. Why are we flying, or not us personally, but why is F1 flying or heading to Azerbaijan, then flying to Canada a week later to fly back into Europe? I know that Canada have got to have a relatively specific date because of climate and things like that, but that if you're going to pack the calendar with 25 races, you can't be flying from one side of the world to the next in the space of a week. That's just ludicrous, and it's also not going to help with costs. So maybe we do need, again, we've mentioned it before, sort of breaking this calendar up into legs, so Europe, Asia, America, Australasia, however they want to do it.
Yeah, and Canada's kind of stuck out like a sore thumb for years and years and years. It's always been that kind of flyaway in the middle that never quite fit in. There was a time when they stuck a US Grand Prix after it, while it was at Indy for a little while. But ever since then, this sort of American leg has been removed from the Canada flyaway. And you're right. I think there's some definite geographical kind of legs they can do, just to take the strain off. It costs less. It'll be less exhausting for the teams. And I mean, they spoke about this. I think Liberty spoke about this like the minute they took over Formula One. That was one of the things they wanted to do, and they haven't got around to it yet. But I imagine that's something we might get round to, the way they're thinking of bringing lots of new venues into the calendar. I don't know when we're going to see this kind of thing, and I don't know if there are like contracts they need to see out to wiggle them around. But I think that is definitely something we'd like to see. Maybe Canada should join the rest of the Americas as it kind of moves down through the USA and Mexico and Brazil.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure what it is. If there's anybody in the chat from Canada can let us know, but I think there's like a climate issue, isn't there, with weather with Canada. But then we went racing in Imola and Turkey and other places, and the Nürburgring in October. So the problem with Canada is it snows. But then that would spice things up quite nicely. A nice snow Grand Prix wouldn't be the end of the world. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go in too hard on the calendar being laid out as it is right now, because we know that things are going to chop and change, and they've kind of had to work with what they've got. But with Canada and Azerbaijan, it was in place last year before everything hit. So that was always going to be the plan, that they'd do this crazy run from... Here's one for you, Stuart. Would you say that Azerbaijan was Eurasia? Because it's kind of part in Europe and mostly in Asia, isn't it? Am I right?
I mean, no, yeah, you're absolutely right. I there was a time where I got very confused about this, and I had to look it up where exactly it was, and I think I think it is in Asia technically, but some of it's in Europe. Like it's definitely more Asia than Europe. I don't know how it got the European Grand Prix slot once, but yeah, it's definitely like way over there in the east.
Yeah, I just wanted to double check before I said it. You go, you go. I put you on the spot. Totally ruined your day. Eurasia over to Canada and then back into Europe for I think would be France. Yeah, it's on the screen there, France. So that can get lost if it wants to. But anyway, for the record, I think 20 is a nice number. I think 25 seems too many. 20 feels like the right balance. And as much as I loved last season, I think if you had 17 races between March and December, you'd feel like the season hadn't been long enough, if that makes sense. Obviously, cramming it between July and December, it felt like a hell of a lot of races in a very short space of time. But if you're taking that over the normal course of the end of March to the beginning of December, that's not going to feel like a lot of races. So 20 feels about right for me. But things could get even more interesting if Formula One decide to... they seem hell-bent on tweaking the race weekend format, and they've talked about reverse grids before. I covered it in yesterday's news roundup, and they were quite clear that is now off the table. I think we've heard that before, but anyway, they've said it's off the table for now. Reverse grids aren't happening, but they're talking about introducing a sprint race which could feature rookies, a mix of rookies, reserves, and current F1 drivers. If we introduce sprint races, and let's say we did them at every weekend on this calendar, that's 46 races in a year. That is way too many. And in a sport that is cutting costs, there's no way you can have 46 races and still keep the cost down, because surely you've got to run... Because if you're running a rookie or a reserve, you've got to have at least one more spare car ready to go. Because, for example, Lewis Hamilton isn't going to fancy letting Stoffel Van Dorn in his Mercedes and potentially binning it on a Saturday morning, is he, before qualifying? So they're going to have an extra car for them, which is going to cost money. You're going to need more spare cars, more spare parts, more mechanics. It's just not going to work. So the only thing I like about this suggestion of the sprint race is that it could be for rookies. I don't know how you feel about that one, Stuart. The idea that rookies might get some track time because they're not getting a lot in testing, but a sprint race on a Saturday as well as practice on a Friday, qualifying on a Saturday afternoon, and a normal race on Sunday across a potentially a 25 race calendar. That's, well, it's going to be expensive, and that to me is way too much.
Yes, and I think I mean, I'm definitely on board with something that allows rookies to be showcased or something along those lines. I think Dominicali was right when he said, we need something beyond just sticking them in FP1 every now and again. Because the roads have kind of closed in terms of like just being able to see what rookies can do before they move up into F1, apart from giving them F2, just giving them some more experience, I think, because testing is also so reduced. I just don't see how you mix up rookies with the F1 drivers using the F1 cars. So maybe it would have to use some other like stock vehicle of some description. It all gets a bit messy. I think the important question is how would this contribute to the weekend, to the Formula One weekend? Because every other session is part of the narrative that builds up to the race, and this just seems like a sort of random side event. What is the incentive for teams to get involved in that, and what is the incentive for us to watch it, if other than sort of light side questing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're Max Verstappen and they say, we want you to do a sprint race on a Saturday morning in your Red Bull, but you'll get no championship points, it's worth nothing, it's just for the show, are Red Bull going to say, yeah, we don't mind paying for that? I don't see why they do that. I mean, it's got to be for something, but bringing World Championship points into it is going to make a right mess of things over the course of the season. For example, I've said it before about points in qualifying for pole position. Do we really want the World Championship decided on a Saturday morning or a Saturday afternoon? No, I'd much rather see it decided in a race on a Sunday, a proper Grand Prix. Listen to me, I'm such an old man. Proper Grand Prix. But I don't like the idea of a title being decided on a Saturday. So bringing World Championship points in wouldn't work for me. So what incentive could you give them, Dan? Because you can't give them could you give them a financial incentive that it's like a separate championship, and then at the end you get an extra $10 million, but is that going to cover the cost of everything they need to go racing for that? Would they rather just not bother spending the money and spend it elsewhere? It doesn't feel like something that's going to work, in my opinion. As fascinating as it would be to see somebody like who have we got in a rookie situation? Say a Robert Schwartzman going up against Charles Leclerc in a Ferrari on a Saturday morning. It'd be great fun, but it's not practical.
Yeah, it's definitely not for me. I like the idea behind it that we want to see more rookies in competitive machinery, and we also want to see closer racing. I get that. I think we can all agree with that. But maybe this is a bit naive of me, but surely that's what Formula 2 is for. Surely that's why we have Formula 2 constantly for the whole calendar now of Formula 2 alongside Formula 1. We've also got F3 and W Series all on show alongside Formula 1 this year. So I feel that's still a great stepping up point for Formula 1. And maybe that's something that F1 teams need to do, perhaps. Invest maybe in, like Red Bull did last year with Carlin, maybe getting their own team in Formula 2 and getting fans into that a little bit more. Because over the last couple of years, I think you've both been watching as well, it's been incredible the talent coming up through. But I do get, we want to see Hamilton. We want to see Verstappen in maybe equal machinery fighting up at the front. We want to see Latifi on pole position maybe and seeing if he can hold on to it. But for me, and again, maybe this is me being a little bit boring, if you want to say, or a bit classic, I think Mercedes deserve to be at the front. They shouldn't be forced to be at the back of the grid because they've got the best car. I want to see proper racing, not artificial racing. And if that means Hamilton's winning every weekend or most weekends, and for one race of the season, Gasly wins, I think that we would lose that special part of Formula One. Those incredible moments, they won't quite feel as special, if that makes sense. So for me, Formula 2's enough. I think it would be great if we had a little bit more investment in Formula 2 and we didn't see so many drivers like Callum Ilott losing their seat because they can't fund it. Maybe that's a better route to go. We already have sprint races. We already have junior races. So yeah, for me, making some sort of Formula 1 sprint race, not my cup of tea.
So if somebody was forcing you then, Dan, that's like, oh, not already. First stream of 2021 and right on the spot. If somebody's forcing you to make a decision and you've got to pick between a reverse grid race on a Saturday that sets a grid for Sunday or a sprint race just for the fun of it, what would you pick from those two? And you can't say neither.
You caught me out. I'd definitely go sprint race for the fun of it because, like you, I would hate for any kind of championship incentive to be on a Saturday. Racing on a Sunday is what Formula One's all about. I think qualifying works fine as it is. So any kind of reverse grid race, yes, it would be fun. And maybe as a one-off at the end of the year just to mess about could be interesting. But no, certainly nothing towards the championship for me.
Do you agree, Stuart? Or do you fancy reverse grids?
To be honest, I'm actually not that against reverse grid. If it's a race to decide the grid, if it's like a similar to the way it's a bit backwards in Formula 2, but the way the first Formula 2 race sets up a reverse grid for the second Formula 2 race. I mean, I don't mind that particularly, but again, I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with Saturdays. But I think if I were going to slot something in, I would slot in a session that actually related to the ongoing narrative of the weekend, that related to the race that was happening on the Sunday.
Chance Baker, thank you for your 2 contributions. Massively appreciated. Says, I know that travelling the world is much different than just travelling North America, but 38 races and we love it as NASCAR fans. If we could, we would have every weekend a race. And also World of Outlaws, which is dirt racing, is 90 races and live in their motorhomes, and kids grow up only ever knowing the racetrack. Wow, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, like you say, sort of traveling across North America. If you were just to have, for argument's sake, the Formula One Championship in the UK, it wouldn't be a problem, really, logistically, would it, fitting in 50, 60, 70 races a year? But like you say, traveling the world, it's a little bit more expensive and complicated. But yeah, I think 20. I think 20 is a nice number for racing. We'll give a hard figure each shortly. But just back on the whole reverse grid things. I agree with Dan. I wouldn't want anything that affects the championship. Sprint races could be fun, but I don't really, as Stuart said earlier, don't really see that there's any point to them because there's no incentive, which is kind of a contradiction there. But which way can you look at it? I think the format is fine as it is. If the qualifying was terrible, the format didn't work, then yeah, try something new. But I think I love quali. I've said this so many times on these live streams. I think it's the best qualifying format we've or certainly I've ever witnessed watching Formula One, because there is drama start to finish. You've not got that 35 minute lull at the start of every session while drivers sit in waiting for the best track conditions, waiting for a Minardi to go out and stick a lap in, so there's some grip down somewhere. It's constant pretty much from start to finish. There's tension and drama. Every single lap counts in those last few seconds of every single session. I love it. I love qualifying as it is, and I don't think introducing, and I'm not being a typical F1 older F1 fan, if you like, who's sort of going, oh, I like things how they were and I don't like change. That's not what it is. I just don't think we need change. And introducing gimmicks like sprint races and reverse grids don't solve the ultimate problem with Formula One, and that is that cars can't follow and they can't overtake. So you could have 50 races across a weekend. They could all be terrible because the cars can't follow each other and can't overtake. So I understand the idea of trying things before we get to the big regulation reset next year, but I also feel, Stuart, like it's probably better. Let's just wait and see if 2022 regs work. If they don't, then maybe make some tweaks to the race weekend format. But if they do, you don't need to touch it.
Whenever I think of Formula One doing this kind of thing, like suggesting or even introducing like changes to the weekend and stuff like that, I think of do you know that meme where there's like a big tank of water and it's leaking and some guy just slaps some hardy tape, like sticky tape onto it, right? I think of it kind of like that, and I think these solutions, be it when they muck around with qualifying or think about doing reverse grids or all this kind of stuff, is unrelated to the problem they're trying to solve. And I think they're concerned that, when one team's dominating, we're not getting enough overtaking in that. And that's all packaged up in other things that are like just how powerful Mercedes are compared to everyone else, how much money there is in one team compared to everyone else, how bad the cars are, regulatory wise to facilitate overtaking. And I think we are seeing them attempt to tackle those problems. We've got, cost caps this year. We've got a sliding scale of like how much aero development you need. We've got new cars coming in next year that should, allow more overtaking possibly. I think, and also this is related again to people who hate certain racetracks, me included, but actually it's probably not the racetrack's fault. It's like other things that are contributing to the problem. And I think maybe we need to stop trying to slap that sticky tape onto the leaking tank and fix the tank. And like you say now, let's see how these things they're doing to the fundamentals of Formula One will affect the racing in the weekend. Because I agree, actually, I think we're all in agreement that the format's pretty much fine, and it's just maybe we're not seeing as much overtaking as we'd like, and we're seeing too much domination. But I don't think it's the problem with the format. I think we're just a bit unlucky in that respect right now.
It's the cars. It really is. I mean, we'll see. We'll see in 22. They might all work out brilliantly. Somebody just said in chats, I can't find you the thing. I said something along the lines of they just want something just in case things don't work. So they've got a backup plan in case the regs don't work to mix things up a bit and try and, while they're fixing things behind the scenes. But I love that idea of the meme. Jean Todt and Stefano Domenicali fighting over the scissors, trying to get the duct tape cut or whatever to tape up the hole in the tank. I won't do the accent. I just think that's a great image. But yeah, what's your hard figure then, Dan? The maximum number of races you accept, because it's all up to you. You're the only one that makes these decisions. And let me know as well in chat, just a hard number, the most number of races you think is acceptable in an F1 season.
I would go 24 as my maximum, and even then I'd be wincing a little. So 23, 24, but 24 maximum.
What about you, Stuart? 83?
I think, it, I mean, 20 right now, 23 is it's got my hackles up. I'm concerned about it. Oh, I already don't want it to go beyond 23. Like I would have thought. In my heart, I think 22 is my preferred maximum. But we should definitely talk about this at the end of the season as well. See how we coped.
Yeah, revisit in December when we're going 12, no more than 12.
Yeah.
I think 20 is a number I like. I don't know if that's just because I'm lazy and it makes the maths easier. I don't know. But I like 20. 22 is a nice number as well. But I think 25 has to be the ceiling now, because otherwise we're either going to have constant double headers, pretty much constant triple headers, or season ends right before Christmas and starts again in the middle of January to get many more in, if that makes sense. So I think 25 needs to be the ceiling, but I'd be happy at 20. I really would. I don't know. I can see chat already are like 1,006,000. Clanson says 21. He says that. Mirko says 22. Mysco says 20. 22 as well for Hemron. Only 18. For X2tis, Josh says 21. Then we've got Sweg on 69. LMAO says 56. Vignesh says 52. Nico says 53. Granny Annie's gone with 22. Evening Annette, or morning Annette, or middle of the night Annette, whatever it is where you are. Vignesh also says 100. So that's 152 in total for Vignesh. Dan Philpott says 69. I've missed you lot so much. 19 minimum, 21 maximum for Rico. Daniel says 20 preferred, 22 maximum. Frankie's gone with 17. Did work well last year. Smoke out FP's visa. What's 9 plus 10? 63. Yeah, so actually, I say that a lot of people in chat want a lot, but they're kind of around where we were. So I think that's sort of acceptable. There was something I was going to bring up about racing. I can't remember what it was now. It will come to me at some point. Just on the calendar, latest, again, I went over this yesterday in the news roundup. If you caught it, you'll already know. If not, I'll quickly fly through it. The latest is that Portugal is probably, or it's looking unlikely to happen on May 2nd, as F1 were kind of hoping for. So it's looking as though it will be Bahrain on March the 28th, and then a week later it will be Bahrain again, possibly the Sakir Grand Prix, and on the outer loop. That is a possibility. So I know a lot of people are excited for that one. Imola would then get pushed back a week from its 18th of April slot, and then it'd be on to Spain and Monaco. So you fancy Sakir back, the outer loop, Dan? Second race of the season? Bit of chaos?
Definitely. Big fan of that Grand Prix. I mean, of course, it was helped with the carnage throughout, with George Russell and Checo winning, but the circuit itself, I think, was a lot of fun, and definitely trying two different layouts. I think that could have been really cool if Silverstone did something similar last year. But yeah, certainly no issues with that.
I'd like to see Portugal, though. I quite like Portimao.
Yeah, I think there's no denying. I think all of the new circuits we went to last year was just, I don't know about you guys, but just a nice bit of fresh air. Portugal for the first time, going back to Turkey, just something a little bit different, was really fun. Going to Spain, I don't think we need that as much. But if we have to have two races in Bahrain, if we do have to go to Spain, at the moment, the way things are in the world, I'll take it.
I remember that when I watched your, or if you're on the race reaction streamer, I watch your review on Spain and you're like, I hate it, I never want it back again. I'm like, well, you said. Yeah, I agree. I really enjoyed the extra race we got. It was great to see the Nürburgring back as well, the Grand Prix circuit. Didn't offer up the race I've been bigging it up for, neither did Imola. But yeah, kind of would like to see Portimao, but you can't ignore that chaos of Sakir, can you, Stuart? No guarantees we'd get that again, of course, but and I think a lot of that chaos came from the fact that we had George Russell filling in for Lewis Hamilton. It just threw in so many variables, didn't it? It's just such a great fun track. So it'd be interesting if we get it again. Maybe Perez could get a win for Red Bull. You know, his second win. That'd be nice. Yeah, I don't know what you want to say on the calendar, really, Stuart. This start to the season. I know you're a bit sceptical about Imola. I think we all are a little bit with these modern day F1 cars, but like Dan said, it's better than nothing at the moment, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad we've got these tracks that are ready to step up. I think we'd rather have F1 than no F1. I know we just spoke about having too many races, but you know what I mean. So I did find it weird that there was still a TBC. The TBC has always thrown me because it's like, oh, we've got this massive jam-packed calendar, but also one of the tracks we don't know where we're going yet. I don't know why they didn't just make it a 22, but that's a whole other discussion. I hadn't heard that if Bahrain did its double header, that Imola would be pushed back a week. That's another thing. I'm not entirely sure of why we need a 2-week gap between Bahrain and Imola, but Australia could go in the middle of a triple header between Brazil and Saudi Arabia. So it's clearly not a logistical thing. I really don't understand what all that's about. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad we have races at the beginning of the season, even though we lost the first one already. And now we're going to get a winter Australian Grand Prix, or summer, I guess, for them.
The only thing, because I was like you, when I was looking at the calendar before this, I was thinking, why on earth has Imola got to move? Because you'd just be Bahrain, week off Imola. The only thing I could think of is that if there are restrictions leaving Bahrain to get to Italy, they might have to quarantine for maybe 10 days or something, so they can't head over there. So maybe that's all I could think of. That's just speculation. I've not checked that for sure. I've not seen anyone confirm that, but it could be that, because I know Bahrain were quite tight on restrictions last year, weren't they? And in fact, actually thinking back, I think they were prior to the Australian Grand Prix being cancelled. I think they were talking about people having to quarantine before they came in and before they left. So it might be that. Whether there's an exemption for Formula One, I don't know. But all I read was for travel reasons. But like you said, it can't be logistics. It just can't be.
Oh, well, yeah, that does seem to make the most sense, I guess. Yeah. I hadn't heard of people quarantining before they left a country. That's a new one. Thank goodness Bahrain has some sense there.
I might be wrong on that. Last year, as everybody knows, was just a complete and total... Yeah. I'm going to use it. Sorry, I'm going to use it. It was a complete and total cluster. So, yeah.
Wow, live? You did that live? That was
did
amazing.
It live. I've got a beat button.
Well played.
That was good.
Oh, it's all fun here at F1 Word headquarters now, I tell you. I've got sliders and all sorts to turn you up and down. It's great fun. So we'll move on from the talk of the calendar, because I want to talk about some of the bigger stories from the winter so far. And there is no... I don't think there's a bigger story than Lewis Hamilton's contract situation, quite frankly. I think it is possibly the biggest and most frustrating ongoing story of the winter. So I don't know if you've heard, Stuart. I know the press have been really quiet about it. Lewis Hamilton hasn't signed a contract with Mercedes yet. That might come as a bit of a surprise. What? I know. I tell you, I'm shooketh. I really am. So yeah, he's not signed Mercedes. It sounds like it's all done and dusted, and it's just about not... maybe some things haven't been agreed behind the scenes. I'm starting to jump on the train, if you like, of people in my comment section saying that this has been done for a while and they're just using it now because it keeps people talking about Mercedes, Ineos, Lewis Hamilton. It's good PR. I don't know if that's the case. Maybe I've got tinfoil hat on, maybe been a bit skeptical there. I don't know. But the latest is that he signed either a 1-year deal or a 1-year deal with an option for 2022 or a 2-year deal. That to me sounds like a compromise, given that not long ago we were talking about, or the press were talking about, how Lewis Hamilton... it's all speculation. The press know nothing. The only people that know anything about this are Lewis Hamilton and Toto Wolff. Put quite simply, Stuart, is he going to sign? Do you think he's going to sign, or do you think he might shock us with retirement tomorrow afternoon?
I don't have much doubt that he's going to sign. Although, you seem to have heard more than me. I hadn't heard anything about it being a 1 year with an option, or I just heard almost nothing. And it's hard to know how much is speculation, how much is real out there. I did, as time has gone on, I've gone more and more onto the train of thought that there is something going on, not with it all being sort of a marketing ploy, but through a lot of the second half of last season, they were all talking it down, weren't they? They were saying, "Oh, we're focusing on the championship, and there's no rush, and it's just a matter of time, etc." And then time has gone on and on, and now I'm just like, well, what is the sticking point? And I'm probably still with the opinion of the thing that we spoke about at the end of last season, is that he probably wants to have the option to get out at the end of this season. but it's probably more dramatically reported than it actually is. But I think he'll sign on, yeah.
I'll come to you in a second on that one, Dan. Thank you very much to Charles Edward Cheese. I think in total last year, I can't remember, you might have done a bit more, but from the top of my head, you donated a total of $750 last autumn. It's just donated $500 in chat to the channel. So thank you so much. That is incredible. If I'd known using the beeper was going to get me $500 a time, I'd be constantly using it. But thank you so much, Charles. If you've got a question or anything, please do pop it in and at me, and I'll give it a read out, because I feel like it needs some kind of comment. But yeah, thank you so much, Charles. That's brilliant, especially over the winter. YouTube F1 YouTube sucks over the winter. So yeah, thank you so much for that. Massively appreciated. Once again, I've completely forgotten what you said now, Stuart. Your last line.
I said, I think he will sign, and it's probably looks more dramatic than it is.
Yeah, I think the media have. I find if you have to click through 16 different articles to get to the original story, it's probably not all that reliable, because you'll get like Planet F1, for example, will quote an article, and then you go to that article and then they've actually quoted another one, and that a bit like Chinese whispers. And I think nobody knows, like I say, what's going on apart from Lewis Hamilton or Toto Wolff. There's nothing wrong with speculating, of course there isn't, but just it seems a bit like you said about the Stefano Domenicali thing. One interview and everyone's jumped on that and made 150 articles on it. That's what it's like with Lewis Hamilton. I've had no doubts that he's going to sign. The only thing that I was umming and ahhing about is if he fancied going through another year with the risk of COVID, for example, and another championship, and thinking, has he had enough? But he's got this 8th title to go for, and I think even though he will say the records, they mean a lot, but they're not his priority, he's going to want number 8. There's no doubt he wants title number 8. So, and you could probably... Sorry to ruin the season already, but you could probably give him and Mercedes a title right now, tell them to take the year off, and then we'll just have everybody else racing. But then you just have Red Bull dominating, so it probably wouldn't work. But yeah, you know the point I'm making. So probably got title 8th in the bag if he stays. I've had no doubts, Dan. Has there ever been a point where you thought, hang on a minute, maybe he is going to shock us all?
Maybe he could swap with Stoffel for a season.
Stuff.
Hamilton does Formula E, Stoffel does. Sorry, I don't mean to tease you. I'm convinced, like you both. I'm pretty convinced he's going to sign at this point. It wouldn't surprise me if they just didn't tell us and he just showed up and we went racing. That really wouldn't surprise me at this stage. But I think Stuart's right. I think rather than it being money or an extra car or anything like that, I think it really is those little details. How many seasons are we going to have left? Will he have an option for an extra year? Will it just be a blanket? You've got 2 seasons. And I even think that maybe the likes of where will George Russell be? What's going to happen to Valtteri Bottas? I think those are the kind of conversations that are really going to be happening behind closed doors, because from a Lewis perspective, yes, Mercedes would love to have George learning alongside him. But for Hamilton, if he wants to be in Formula One, he wants to be winning. That's why he wants to be there at this stage in his career. So I think they're the more intricate details of that contract. Of course, Russell's contract is ending this year at Williams. I'm sure this will be a big story throughout this season. I would expect him to go to Mercedes next year. I would expect him to be alongside Lewis, but I think they're the real sticking point to this contract. And I know Toto signed for an extra 3 years, was it? I think it was 3 years that Toto signed up for. Yeah, I think that's what Lewis is looking for at the moment. And I think, it would be a big surprise if he wasn't racing this season.
Yeah, the teammate. I'm going to talk about teammates in a minute, because there is a rumor flying around. Audible eye roll there. In fact, we'll do it now because you've sort of mentioned teammates there. Apparently, there's a Verstappen clause. Some are saying that it's specifically if Mercedes want Max Verstappen, Hamilton can veto that. Others are saying it's actually just a teammate clause, which I think is probably more likely than specifically a Verstappen clause. I can't imagine anywhere in his contract it says Max Verstappen is not getting in that car. Do you believe that, Stuart? Do you think there is a teammate clause? Do you think he's got that much of a say at the team? Or is it just that he really likes Valtteri Bottas and wants to keep him there? Because I can't imagine that he's specifically got a driver named in his contract that cannot come to the team. I think a veto's there, but a Verstappen clause?
I mean, this is obviously speculative. I suspect it's more along the lines you're talking, if there is one at all. Obviously, he's a powerful and important figure to Mercedes, so he probably has a number of, whether you want to call them vetoes or whatever, like clauses that allow him to have a say in certain things he has to, I don't know, deal with, put up with being on that team, which probably includes certain teammates. I feel like his time with Rosberg wasn't the best, that he maybe just wants to have a sort of healthier, more enjoyable time than he did in those final years racing alongside Rosberg. But yeah, I can't imagine him just pointing out people who he considers to be his greatest rival and saying, no, not working with them. Having said that, like you say, that's probably how it would manifest in the way he exercises it.
Yeah, kind of back to the whole if it ain't broke, don't fix it thing. Hamilton, Bottas, it works, doesn't it? And I don't believe that George Russell will be in that car before Lewis Hamilton retires. I don't think it's going to be Hamilton Russell at any point. If Mercedes wanted to do that, they would have done it already. That's genuinely how I feel on that one. So I think it's Hamilton. If Hamilton signed a 2-year deal, that for me confirms Bottas at Mercedes until the end of 2022. That genuinely, because I don't see why he would let a teammate who works well with him, who is quick but not quite quick enough to challenge him for the titles and helps the team towards constructors' titles and takes points off his rivals. There's no reason for him to want Bottas to leave. So I think if I was in Hamilton's position, I would want Bottas as well, or somebody like a Bottas. So I think that pretty much, if it's a 2-year deal, it confirms Bottas stays for 22. The thing is as well, just on Hamilton, he said in the past that this next contract he negotiates is his biggest because it will be his last one in Formula One. So it could well be that he's got this 2-year deal and then probably going to retire at the end of 22, and that's when Bottas goes, and that's when Mercedes maybe go all out for a Verstappen-Russell lineup, Dan. Unless, I mean, you're probably going to come in now and go, oh, no, Russell will be at Mercedes next year, no doubt whatsoever. But I think I just don't see Mercedes going Hamilton-Russell. I can't tell you why. It's just a gut feeling.
You're right. I disagree with you. I think Mercedes have waited with Russell long enough now. I think that one race in Sakhir is proof enough. He's done his time learning. He's ready for a seat at the top.
Around 4 corners. That's throwing you off straight away.
Well, leave me alone. I think George has proved enough in the Williams as well as that race for the Mercedes. And I think for Lewis, I don't know. I feel if he wants to stay in Formula One, that little bit of challenge wouldn't hurt him that much. Yes, he would love the idea of just going off and being guaranteed a title, similar to what we think he's going to have this year. But from Mercedes' point of view, do they want to be 2 years down the line with Russell having maybe left the team? Will he be willing to stay around another couple of years at Williams? I'm not too sure. Are they going to want to be in a situation where they've got Russell, who's unproven, alongside Bottas, who might continue the next couple of years to challenge anywhere near Lewis? So I think there's, I would say, a 50-50 chance that George could be alongside Hamilton next year. I don't see a Verstappen or a Leclerc or anyone else like that coming in for the time being. So I'm against what you say and saying that it's going to be guaranteed Bottas next year. But hey, with the last couple of years in the transfer market, you just never know.
No, I mean, Russell is more likely to have that seat than Verstappen or Leclerc. As long as Hamilton's there, we're not going to see. I agree with you there, but I just think Hamilton, if it's all if, we've got to keep saying speculation. If it's true that he gets to stay over his teammate, it will be Bottas next year if Hamilton stays, assuming Hamilton stays for next year, obviously. But what I do want to say actually on George Russell, just to clear something up, I did a video on Lewis Hamilton a couple of weeks ago. I said that Russell wasn't on Hamilton's level. Russell is not on Hamilton's level. I got a lot of stick for that one. Russell is a fantastic young man, a very quick driver with so much potential, and he will undoubtedly, if everything falls his way, go on to have a very successful Formula One career. He is not on Hamilton's level. So many people came at me saying, oh, he showed in Sakhir that Mercedes don't need Hamilton. Look what he did. He showed he was as good as Hamilton. No. What George Russell showed at Sakir is he is better than Valtteri Bottas. That's all he showed. He didn't show that he was on Hamilton's level. If it was Hamilton and Russell absolutely destroyed Hamilton, yeah, chuck him out, get him in. But he didn't. He showed that he was better than Valtteri Bottas across one race around 4 corners at a track that nobody knew, with all sorts of chaos going on. So I love George Russell. I think he's a lovely guy. I think he's going to have a very good career, like I say. But I said this about Leclerc, I seem to remember. I don't know if either of you were on before with me when I've said it, but I feel like we just need to just calm down a little bit with George. I think he's going to be special, but let's just let him carry on at Williams for this year, keep him developing, and then we'll go from there. He could well be one of the greats. Who knows? But do you feel like we rush these kids a little bit, Stuart? That sounds really condescending and patronising about George Russell, but you know what I mean? These young drivers, do we rush them? Do some people expect too much of them too quickly?
I think sometimes, yeah. And this is a kind of thing that we sort of maybe sometimes see with Red Bull, or that's normally them having their hand forced than anything else. But we've seen people like Leclerc. They have one season in a junior team, and they show themselves, and they get to be moved up, and it turns out to be a good decision, and they can serve a top team really well. And I think with George Russell in particular, he had his first rookie season with Williams. He seemed pretty good. He had last year his second season, and his second season with them, and was, especially on a Saturday, regularly proving his speed. But didn't get any points for it. But then was able to have that one race with Mercedes, and yeah, it was a funny track, and yeah, Verstappen was out and stuff. But we saw a mature, dedicated show of speed that I think similar to Max Verstappen rocking up in the Red Bull in Spain when he replaced Kvyat. So I think sometimes we put a lot of weight on rookies' shoulders, but I think Russell is now at the point in his career where he's definitely ready to move up from Williams, but I think he could handle that seat. It would be better if he could handle that seat as a number 2 for a year before having everything expected of him. But yeah, he's had his time. He served his rookiness.
His rookiness. I love that. That's the word from now on. That is the word from now on. I mean, yeah, I get that, and maybe I know everyone's gonna go, well, no, because his dad owns the team. But maybe if Stroll doesn't have a very good year, maybe there's a spot there for Russell. There's quite a close relationship, isn't there, between Aston and Mercedes? It's only growing, so maybe there could be something there. I know that's perhaps clutching at straws because of obviously the Stroll ownership of that team, but there could be something. McLaren with the Mercedes ties, if it doesn't work for Ricciardo, if he gets a seat somewhere else and moves on again, I don't know. I know contracts are in place, but as we know in F1, contracts can be broken, or if Norris decides to move on, I don't know. But I've said before, I think he's wasted in the Williams. What I mean by that is I think it's great that he's there, and it's great that he's cutting his teeth, getting to know the sport properly, but I do feel like he needs to be in a quicker car, but I just don't think rushing him into that Mercedes. We saw what that did with Gasly at Red Bull, what it did with Albon at Red Bull as well. I'm not saying they're on the same level as Russell or vice versa. I'm just giving examples of young drivers. But I think it's the Verstappen thing. I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask this as well. So I'll put it to Dan because you've obviously you've brought that one up, Stuart. It's a good point. Do you think it's because of Verstappen that these young drivers are rushed through so quickly now because it worked so well for Red Bull? Kind of set a precedent.
Possibly, but at the same time, even Lewis Hamilton, when he came in that very first season, I don't think anyone expected him to be anywhere near the levels of Fernando Alonso. So I think you always get those once-in-a-generation drivers that are going to be able to compete with the very best. And what we saw from Max in F3, and then, of course, when he went to Formula One and Red Bull, was so special. Charles, very similar in Formula 2. And I think that's something we also saw with George Russell when he was in Formula 2 in an incredible grid that year with Norris, with Albon, with Nick de Vries as well, who also never got a chance in Formula 1, but is also a super quick driver. So with George, I feel like whereas all these other guys, these hot shots that were doing so well, got their chances really early on in top teams, it just seems to be taking forever to him to get anywhere close to it. And that race in Sakir, where he did have that one chance, I don't really think he could have done much more. So, yeah, definitely a driver, I think, that has the potential to be a future star. But like you said, Sean, that word is potential. And we won't know until he's in a top seat, and very easily it could go the way of Pierre Gasly, Alex Albon, where it doesn't work out. Definitely, I think with you both, really, Max Verstappen hasn't helped, because the way that did shine on that very first weekend was so incredible. But at the same time, people do forget that next couple of years where he had the nickname of Crashstappen. It did take him a little bit of time to learn the sport. And maybe with Russell at Williams, that is giving him the opportunity. Like we saw at Imola with that little mistake, wasn't massively in the limelight because he was at Williams. So a little bit of time doesn't always hurt.
Yeah. I think we're agreeing, Dan.
Makes a change.
Yeah, a bit disconcerting. Charlotte, thank you very much for your contribution. Merck should have signed George for 2021 as a number 2 written in contract, allow him to learn from Lewis. Then when Lewis retires, he'd lead the team. I think part of me would love to see him learn from Lewis. You're not going to learn from anybody better right now on the grid, are you? I mean, that's 7-time world champion. You're learning from them. It's going to be something quite special in that regard. But I think George Russell, for me, has already shown at Williams that he can lead a team. I know it's back of the grid, I get that, but he walked into that team, looked pretty much from day one like he was so mature head, leading that team, and I think he could lead Mercedes. I don't know. There's also a fear that if he goes to Mercedes, for me, and goes alongside Lewis Hamilton as number 2, that's going to be, I suppose, in a way, a mark against his career. Does he then become a number 2 driver, and that's how people look at him? I'd much rather, from his point of view, see Hamilton retire in a couple of years and then have George Russell in that car. But I don't know. It's a difficult one. It is a difficult one. I like George, but we'll see how that one goes. We'll talk about the upcoming season briefly then, if you fancy that one. I was going to say lads, because I'm just so laddish. Why not? What are you looking forward to, Dan, this coming season? I've got Carlos Sainz there in Ferrari overalls. Got to admit, really looking forward to that fight between Sainz and Leclerc at Ferrari. I think that's going to get very spicy, as you might say.
Just Ferrari in general. Surely it can't be worse than last year. Surely.
Uh-oh.
All good?
Yeah, just you totally jinxing Ferrari.
Oh, I thought I'd been kicked out or something, or gone robot then.
Not yet.
Not yet. We're still going strong. Yeah, it could happen with Ferrari. You just never, ever know. But I think in Leclerc and Sainz, they've got a consistent lineup there. They've got 2 drivers that have the potential to do great things. For me, though, I think I'm looking forward to Aston Martin. Seeing that racing green back on the grid. There was even today, Lance Stroll teasing a boot, and it was green. And that was enough to get me excited.
That's the off-season for you.
Yeah, exactly, man. I wasn't proud. But at the same time, that's going to be so, so special, seeing them line up on the grid next season. With Seb, will he be this, or will he continue a redemption storyline, or will it continue to spiral out of control like it has the next couple of years? There are so many question marks. I think Lance Stroll last year took a big step forward, and I'd quite like to see him once again make that step forward. Fighting within that top 10 for the entire season would be awesome for his career. So Aston Martin's the one for me.
I think Dan's excited, Stuart. I don't know if you got that vibe. What are you looking forward to this year? I think I mean Perez in the overalls there has got to be a one for everybody this year. Surely, see what we can do against Verstappen.
Yeah, that's where my mind was heading. Actually, I think for a number of reasons. No, I think you're absolutely right. There's a couple of reasons really for that. One is, seeing the potential of Perez. To be honest, we had him at McLaren, but I think maybe it was a little bit too early for him, or McLaren being in a funny place at that particular time, but also I think it may help us answer the question of what the hell's going on at Red Bull, because that second seat has been an issue for them for quite a while, and it has been filled with rookie drivers put under a lot of pressure for a long time now, and they've suffered. And now we have a mature driver, had a strong career so far in a sort of in the midfield, pulling out better performances year on year, and probably not as easily rattled either by management or by Verstappen, to be honest. Even if Verstappen turns out to be quicker than him on a regular basis, so I think finally we're sort of maybe going to see some kind of benchmark between the two cars, have some sense of who Verstappen is, have some sense of who the Red Bull team are, and possibly allow Red Bull to challenge Mercedes more regularly. Maybe not maybe for the championship, but hopefully more regularly by having a two-pronged attack and catching them off guard. So I'm very excited to see that. But I think I still think of Ferrari as a top three team, to be honest. But like Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari all sort of have quite a nice lineup right now. So that's very exciting.
Do you want a bold prediction?
Go on.
If, and I don't think he will, if Lewis Hamilton retires, Red Bull will win the Constructors' title.
You mean if he doesn't take part in this year at all?
Yeah, if he retires this year, Red Bull, before the season starts, Red Bull will win the Constructors.
It's not a terrible shout. I mean, it depends who Mercedes have, I guess, but with two strong drivers, it's not beyond Red Bull's ability. I read I think it was on Autosport. I don't know who the writer was, but an article talking about how Red Bull normally have a slow start to the season and it takes them a while to get ramped up, and their second half's a lot stronger. But whereas this year, because there's so much carried over it, they may have the momentum to actually start the season, rolling strong. So may not have that kind of slow start to get points and get results. So there is potential this year that Red Bull, will be much more of a challenge than they normally are.
I think we've got a lot of great stories coming this year. I mean, I think Mercedes will be what we'd expect, but then you've got Perez and Verstappen at Red Bull. What's going to happen there? I'm with you, Stuart. I'm intrigued to see if it is, how much of it is the car and how much is the driver. I'm sure it's the car to a point, but could a driver like Perez with his experience drag that car a bit further than the likes of Albon and Gasly could? That's going to be fascinating. I think the McLaren lineup, I think how's Norris going to handle this driver, this Daniel Ricciardo coming in, who so many people rate so very highly? How's he going to cope with that? Is that going to mix things up? Aston Martin's going to be like, Aston Martin, by the way, Dan, Otmar Safnauer saying their minimum target for 2021 is third in the Constructors. Minimum target. That is quite a step.
A fifth world title for Seb, anyone? Is that going to be on the cards?
I could see third, don't get me wrong, but to say minimum, that's wow.
Pushing it a bit, I think we can all agree. But even just that fight in the midfield with McLaren with their Mercedes engines, Alpha Tauri seemed to be getting better and better and better last year. Yuki Tsunoda, what he's going to do. So many stories. And Fernando, Alpine, we've not even mentioned them yet. Are they going to make a step forward? It's so many different storylines up and down the grid. It can't not be a bad season.
I hope not. That's twice you've jinxed it now. Come on.
Sorry, I'm just getting too excited.
Chance Baker, thank you very much for another contribution. Says, I know the answer probably, but had to step away from the conversation. Did you answer my last super chat? Was it about the 90? If you sent one in between the 90 races and that one, no, I've obviously missed it. But if you don't send the money again, obviously, but if you just at me in the chat, Chance, I'll keep an eye out for it and I'll answer that question for you. Sorry, I've totally missed that one. I can't find it on the chat thing. But yeah, I'm just so hyped for this season. I tell you what, I'm quite intrigued as well with the battle at the back between Williams, Haas, and probably Alfa Romeo as well, because I think we've got some great storylines in there. George Russell, a point to prove. I think Latifi actually had a solid first season in Formula One. Can he kind of take the mix in? You've got the new lineup at Haas with Schumacher and Mazepin. It's going to be interesting to see how that one comes together. Who's going to come out on top in that one? Will that drop Haas to the back of the field because the inexperience will it lift them up the field? I don't think so, if I'm being honest. And what are Alfa Romeo going to do? Because they've stuck with Kimi and Gio for this year. Are they going to kind of stick around in 8th place? So I'm expecting a season of groups again, to sort of your top 2, and then 3 down to 7, and then probably 8, 9, and 10. But I'm kind of hoping that this reduction of downforce, I think it's 10% reduction in downforce, the cars being similar, that the field might close up even more, and maybe we might, Stuart, I'm living in dreamland here. We might see what we saw last year with so many different drivers on the podiums, maybe new winners as well. Just let's bring Mercedes and Red Bull back a little bit, and let's really just have an epic season to end this era of F1. I suppose say F1 aero era, if you could say that quickly enough.
I mean, it's not impossible at all that we could have at least a nice mixture of people on the podium and definite rising stars having some surprises. And speaking of Mercedes and Red Bull, don't forget they are now on restricted aero development limits compared to the people below them. In fact, I think I got to work this out properly. When you calculate it, so the aero testing is sort of divided up into 6 periods throughout the year, and every period, I think Mercedes have 20 runs in the wind tunnel fewer than Red Bull. So it's like Williams, for example, will have massive amounts of aero development ability compared to the top teams, and they've already said they will be switching. By the time summer comes, they will be 100% focused on 2022. So there's that secondary story going along of when do teams shift their focus across to next year when all the big rules come in, and that's going to have an effect on how they fight this championship and how they come into next championship. They're trying to juggle 2 things at once here. So could be quite a big variable throughout this season.
I forgot to mute my mic. Chittering away to myself. Do you think it's going to have a big impact this year? I think Williams are 112.5% of the wind tunnel time, and Mercedes are 90%. So do you think that's going to have a massive impact this year, or do you think we're going to see the bigger change next year? Because the gap is, I think, is it 5% increments between each team in 22?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot bigger in 22. They're sort of easing it in this year. I think, definitely between top and bottom, that's a significant amount. I don't think we'll necessarily see it in a way that's really obvious this year, but I think this thing will start to come into play over many seasons, I think. And I'm quietly confident this will allow teams to sort of middle out in terms of their, if not necessarily their competitiveness within a season, but their ability to continue to be competitive season on season. I think it will be interesting, and especially considering you are limited this year in how all the teams are limited, and they still need to decide when they're going to just stop working on this car completely. And if Red Bull are challenging Mercedes and much more than we expect, what are Mercedes going to do about it? At which point do they decide to stop funneling money into this championship and start funneling into the next championship? It's going to be a tricky thing to balance. I think we're going to see more of that trickiness maybe in the midfield, that kind of McLaren, Aston Martin, Alpine, Ferrari kind of area, probably than Mercedes, who, as you said earlier, are likely to have this championship. But still, I think that's an interesting strategy within the team.
Yeah, I don't know about sort of Mercedes, Red Bull, and up the front of the grid, but I did read today that Gunther Steiner has said that Haas are already ready to put everything behind the 22 car, which Williams have said that they're not. Williams has said they won't write this season off, but I think for Haas and Williams, it's kind of a must, isn't it, Dan? That they've got to not maybe write the whole thing off, but at least a good chunk of it, because this is their big opportunity to do a Brawn, to do a Mercedes, to go from sort of a little bit, well, they're right at the back, aren't they? But to go from quite a way away from the top to make it right to the very front, or to be at least challenging. And Williams did it themselves in 2014, of course.
Yeah, I think so. I'd probably throw Alfa Romeo in that mix as well. When you see that those back 3 teams were over 100 points off 7th place AlphaTauri, that's a big gap they're not going to be able to make up in one season without any kind of real regulation change. So 2022 for all three of them is going to be massive. You've mentioned there a few different changes with the wind tunnel. That's going to be big for them. I don't think it will have a huge effect, but if they can just find one little area, like you say, with Brawn, with that rear diffuser, if they can just find something that the other teams aren't doing, it could be a goldmine. And for Williams, with this new partnership with Mercedes, they're going to have more boys and girls in the factory working on different areas of the car. I've got a good feeling about them. They've got to just make sure, like in 2014, if they do make their way to the front, if they do start scoring points on a regular basis, maybe even podiums, they've got to stay there. And I think the structure they've got in place now is far better than they had in 2014. But also in Formula One, we've got so many great and stable teams at the moment. A whole host of them could be at the front, and there's always going to be teams that are at the back of the grid. That's inevitable. But definitely, Haas, Williams, and Alpha, there's a massive opportunity for them to move forward in 22. So I think 2021 this year might be a bit of a stinker for them again.
Of course, your man ain't there anymore either to save them, is he? So
No, I know. If he was there, though, they'd be winning Grand Prix, of course.
Oh, of course, absolutely. Who are you backing this year then? Who am I going to be ribbing you about in 2021?
I'm just going to have to keep it quiet, I think.
You are really, yeah.
I can't go through that again. That'd be too painful. So
I'll come to some questions. If you've got any questions in chat, please do pop them in. I'll read some off YouTube as well. 407 watching, which is more than I thought, actually. Possibly the virtual Grand Prix is finished now. 121 likes, so please do drop a like on the stream. We'd be massively appreciated. Let's get that number up a little bit. And as well, thank you for all your contributions tonight. Annette, if you are still there in chat, I know it's like the middle of whatever for you there. If you happen to find Chance Baker's super chat in chat, or if he's reposted it, please do let me know so I can give it a read out, because I can't seem to spot it. So yes, oh, there we go. Oh, shut up. Chance Baker, it's turned up. It says, I am from Canada and I like F1, but I do like NASCAR more. I know the time difference is a killer, because I know. Would you do a Daytona 500 watch along? Love to hear your thoughts and your pals talk. To be honest, have I watched Daytona? Which one's Daytona? Well, the 500, obviously. I don't think I've ever watched Daytona. I don't know if I'd do a watch along. I'd probably have to watch it this year first to see what it's all about. And then maybe, never say never. People don't like me doing things that aren't F1 on the channel, but never say never. I'm not going to say yes, but I won't say no. I never rule these things out. But you might have to remind me again this time next year if it crops up. But thank you again for your contributions tonight, Chance. Massively appreciated. And don't worry, Annette, we found it. Could Mercedes finally be beaten this year? If they can, who do you think can do it? That's from Riley Gale. What do you reckon, Dan? I think probably Red Bull's the most likely one, isn't it? Unless you think Haas are going to smash it.
Hey, I'm still going for Aston Martin. If Otmar's saying minimum third place, no, I think Red Bull. I think Red Bull are going to be the only team close again, but I think they're going to be much, much closer this season. And it's nothing against Alex, lovely boy, but I think Checo having that reliable rear gunner is going to help them out so much. So many occasions last year. I think Verstappen could have won more Grand Prix if he just had someone else there to help him with the strategy, to give Red Bull options. Mercedes still the team to beat. Hamilton's still the favourite for the title, but I think Red Bull will be a lot closer.
Interesting one from Matt Cook. Something I haven't brought up in the stream, but so I'm going to read it. Do you think the changes slated for Albert Park will make a difference to the racing at the Aus Grand Prix? Have you seen the changes they're talking about, Stuart?
Yes.
Does that pique your interest?
Honestly, it really does. I know some people are a bit down on Albert Park. I've actually really tended to enjoy it, but upon thinking about it, having realised not everyone likes it, I think it's more like it has that beginning of season buzz and everyone's a bit rusty and there's always some kind of nonsense happening. But yeah, they are thinking, well, I think first things, they are widening the pit lane so the cars can go faster through the pit lane, so the actual pit stop times are quicker so they can have more strategy. But I think more importantly, they are thinking of modifying some of the corners to give them some banking. I think they did some analysis and listened to the drivers, and they were like, well, I can't remember exactly which corners, but like turn 13 or whatever had off-camber banking, so it slopes downwards towards the outside, which is quite tricky for grip. And they think, well, we could give it 6 degrees of banking and make it a real overtaking opportunity, make it quite exciting. And that's, it's not as dramatic as Zandvoort, but it's those kind of little changes that may change the characteristic of the track and make it a must watch. I'm excited. And they are, I think, like their intent was to do it for this year by the time we get there, aren't they?
Yeah, it was something to do with they were always slated to be done for 22, but because obviously they've moved back to November, that's not enough time between November and March to get it done. So they've decided to do it this year so that it's ready for November. So I'm quite fascinated. I think you've made a point there about it not always getting the love it deserves. I think it kind of gets away with quite a bit. Does Albert Park? I think people, as you said, because there's so much hype for the season, we're just excited to see racing again. I think it gets away with quite a bit. If that was the 5th or 6th race, we'd all talk about how dreadful it is. But you've got the hype behind it, and it helps, doesn't it? So, but yeah, I think it is for November. The changes are coming in, and I think it's. I mean, you've got to try it, haven't you? It's difficult because of where it is. It's a park, and it's public roads and all that, so it's not an easy thing to do. But you've got to try something if you can, because it hasn't spiced up the racing. It hasn't really changed since it debuted in 96. Not maybe a few tweaks here and there, but the layout is really fundamentally the same. I think even Monaco's possibly changed more than Albert Park has in that time.
I think it actually has. I think it genuinely has.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting, Matt, to see how that one goes on. Definitely. And Dave the Fish says, this is definitely one for you, Dan. What do you think of this new young driver? I think his name is Fernando Alonso. I think that's how you spell it. I think he's got a good history in motor racing. Can't wait to see how he'll do in F1. Do you rate him, mate? Do you think he'll do all right? Was it Fernando Alonso?
Yeah, I don't really know a lot about him. He wasn't in F2 last year, but he did the young driver test, didn't he?
He did, yes.
So, yeah, he could be all right. He's up against Esteban Ocon, who also seems to be going under the radar this year. Just Alpine in general seem to be just going about things really quietly this year, which seems just so unlike Renault, just not a Renault thing to do. So the rebrand is going well. That's the starter. I think Fernando, if he can be the Fernando that we saw in his last year of McLaren, he should be right in that mix in the midfield. But 2 years out, we saw 1 year out with Ocon, how he struggled to get up to grips straight away. So I think it'll take him a little bit of time, but I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be competitive. I think he'll be moaning on the radio, and that's going to be a lot of fun to see. But I think he'll be okay. Will he be really hassling for that best of the rest? I'm not quite sure. I think the pace of the McLaren, the not Alfa Romeo, crikey, there's so many Alphas. Aston Martin will be a little bit better than Alpine, but I think he'll be fine.
What do you reckon, Stuart? I can't believe Dan went with that. Yeah, what do you think, Stuart? Are you looking forward to his return? Yeah,
I think it's definitely going to be interesting. We should definitely see how well that Alpine car is coming. Although, yeah, I actually think the Renault was pretty strong last year and getting stronger throughout the year. So I think they could be off to it. And that engine seems pretty good now. So, I hope he's given the opportunity to to put his potential to good use, I guess. I think even though he's been away from Formula One, he has been doing a lot of motorsport. In fact, he was doing a lot of motorsport even when he was in Formula One. He already started his WEC run while still at McLaren. I think, and he's been competitive and hungry, and I don't think he's lost anything particularly. I don't think the cars have moved on in a dramatic way since he was last there. So I think he could slot back in fairly happily, kind of maybe quite similar to how Kimi Räikkönen did when he took those years out to do some rallying. He's getting on now. He's quite old, but then Kimi Räikkönen is about 50 now, so he could still have a long career ahead of him.
At least 50. But I think when you sort of look at him on Instagram, I think it's not even old, but he's definitely young at heart. Is Kimi Räikkönen? There's no doubt about that whatsoever.
Whereas Alonso's been a grumpy old man since he turned up.
Sort of has. He sort of has, but I've said my piece on Alonso. He went. I think there are maybe some young drivers that could and perhaps should be given their opportunity, but at the same time, Formula One is the pinnacle of motorsport. We also want the best drivers over here, and Fernando Alonso is still, on his day, one of the best racing drivers on the planet. That's going to get me some stick, but I genuinely believe that. I genuinely believe he is. And he just loves racing, so hopefully he'll come back with that. Maybe coming into Alpine, it's a project. He's only there for a couple of years to help with 2022 is how it's at least been worded in press releases. Maybe just coming back because he wants to go racing. He might cheer up a bit. We might not have that. Because I will always say about Alonso, I totally get why he was grumpy. I totally understand, because that McLaren and Honda partnership was a freaking nightmare. So I completely sympathise with him there. So maybe he'll just come back full of beans because he's realised just how much he loves Formula One, really, and he misses it. But we shall see. I think the Ocon-Alonso dynamic, Vettel, Stroll, Perez, Verstappen, we've got some fascinating lineups this year, and I cannot wait to dig into that this season. Box Fresh says, who will have the best livery? What do we reckon, Dan? I mean, I'm going to say Aston Martin personally, because it's going to be probably the only one that really changes that much.
Yeah. I mean, the black Mercedes was a real nice change last year, and I think they'll continue that this season, and I think that'll be nice. I pray Ferrari stops using matte paint. I really want to see a nice scarlet red Ferrari.
Yes, a shiny Ferrari. They're supposed to be shiny.
Come on, guys. It's needed. It's got to be on the grid. Red Bull, I guess, will be the same. But yeah, Aston Martin. And I think Alpine as well. I wasn't a massive fan of their testing livery they launched the other month. But if we could have some kind of blue chrome loveliness, that would be right up there as well. So Aston and Alpine for me.
Yeah, and if the latest rumours are to be believed, I don't believe them for the record, but if they are to be believed, Williams might be title sponsored by Rich Energy, so we might see the black and the gold back. Yeah. Sorry, was that a yawn? I don't believe those rumours for a second, but we'll watch this space. You never know. They've got a big announcement next week, apparently, Rich Energy, so probably to tell us that they're finally stocking it in shops. But hey to Liam, Talks Motorsport in chat. Good to see you, mate. And I said on Twitter you were popping along, so thank you for coming. Good to see you again. New season. Hope you've got lots of content planned. Just scrolling up quickly, I lost a load of questions there. I had loads, and I can't appear to find them. Some saying Dan might be a Latifi fan this season. Maybe.
Yeah. We'll have a word off camera about that, but maybe.
He's not going to tell me because he knows I'm going to give him grief. I think 15 is nice, and rotary calendar every 2 years, says JS. I think that's sort of what... I don't think he's looking as low as 15. Stefano Domenicali, but I would say he's looking probably around 2022 and then a few on rotation, so that's not a bad idea. What do you think about the Rich Energy claiming to return to F1 this year? That's from Anthony Bill. We've just talked about that one. I think it's nonsense. And I will just say, he says talking about it on stream, one of the reasons Rich Energy are so prominent on social media is because people keep giving them the attention they crave. It's free publicity. If you don't want them near F1 and you can't stand them, stop quote tweeting them, stop retweeting, stop liking, stop engaging, just ignore them and they'll go away like a... I don't know what I was going to say, like a fart in a phone box. It'll go away if you ignore it. They don't. just for the record. What's a phone box? It's 2021, Sean. That was... Sean's back for 2021. Terrible. Yeah, any more questions in chat before I put these two on the spot?
Oh, God.
McLaren livery to change with the new engine. I can never say your first name, so I'm going to say McGovern. If you want to send me a DM or an email or something to tell me how to say it so that I don't keep butchering it, I'm sorry. But yeah, McLaren livery to change with the new engine. What do we reckon, Stuart? Do you think we'll see a nice return to the chrome, or are we stuck with papaya now? I say stuck. I like orange. Well, that is papaya, not orange. I need to stop saying that.
Oh, 100%. We're papaying too. They may make some changes like they do every year, but I think we're papaya through and through. Even quite recently, Zach Brown did an interview where when he talks about returning, well, not returning, but taking over McLaren and how important it was to engage with what the fans want and how the fans enjoy the McLaren team and bringing papaya back because that's what that's what they wanted from McLaren. So I don't think that's going away anytime soon. And also, I don't think Mercedes are particularly interested in putting silver on other people's cars either.
No, they're not bothering this year again, are they? So maybe they do need someone to put some silver on their cars. They're not the silver arrows again this year. Yeah. Dan Philpott, how will Grosjean do in IndyCar? Dan, what do you reckon? 150 wins. I think he's just doing the. Oh, in fact, I know. He's said it. The road courses this year. Doesn't fancy the ovals, which I can kind of understand given what happened in Bahrain. But do you reckon some wins for him, maybe? Or am I just being more of a fanboy than you?
I've got no clue. I've never watched IndyCar, so this year's going to be a first for me. I'm going to learn it as best I can. But from what I can gather, he's at a bit of a midfield team, so I'm not expecting too much. But maybe a podium. That'd be quite nice. But hey, just seeing him in racing cars at all is something I didn't expect this season. So it'll be fun learning Indy. But in terms of predicting, I've got no clue. Do not come to me, Philpott. I've got no idea.
I love how we just surname him when we're angry with him. Shut up, Philpott. Liam, I'll do these as two quick fire questions then. Come to you first, Stuart. Liam, who do you think will be last in the constructors between Williams, Haas, and Alfa Romeo?
I mean, if I had to put money on it, I'd say Williams, but I don't think it's necessarily a sure thing. Haas have had a nightmare run of it. Although fresh new, it's got Williams. I'm gonna say Williams, but I don't want it to be. I think that's what it is. I just don't want it to be, but I think it's Williams.
I love listening to you squirm on those questions. I really do. Yeah, but it's only 8 points between Alfa Romeo and Williams last year, weren't there? So a crazy race, you never know. And Dan, Adam Osborne says, how far do you think the title battle will go? What race do you think it'll be wrapped up at? Spain?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, no one expected it to be Turkey last year. I feel this is an impossible question. God, let's go with Paul Ricard. Why not? And it'll be near the end of the season. Complete random guess.
Wow. This isn't Stuart's predictions. Let's not go mad. Awesome stuff. Right then. So I was going to put you both on the spot. I'm coming to you first, Dan, because you just been cheeky again. Actually, no. Annette says who comes third. I'll give that one. I think that's going to be McLaren. I'm going for third again this year. I think they've shown great progress. Mercedes power unit, Daniel Ricciardo coming in, so I don't think they're losing much, if anything, in their driver lineup, because I think Sainz is a very, very good driver. I think Daniel Ricciardo is a very, very good driver. So I reckon third for McLaren this year. So there you go. That's what I'm going with on that one. But I was going to put you on the spot, Dan. One bold prediction that isn't France at the end of the year for 2021. And that gives Stuart time to prepare now. He's probably relieved.
Oh, you're the worst. Lance Stroll wins a Grand Prix.
That's a good one.
I said bold, not a dead cert. Come on.
he wins back-to-back Grand Prix. No, we'll just go one Grand Prix for old Lance. I'm not going to tell you which one. You're not getting that out of me. But one big dub for Lance Stroll in the cars this year.
Oh, imagine if he won Canada. That'd be a story, wouldn't it?
With Latifi P2, crikey, that would be a good one.
With Latifi P2, yeah, definitely. What about you there, Stuart? I've already given mine, the Red Bull one, so it's your turn.
Oh, it's so hard. You know, I've got this. I've got this suspicion that things are going to be a lot closer than they are. So I'm gonna say that the constructors' title goes to the very end.
Do you know, I actually think that is a very bold prediction. Genuinely. Yeah. The constructors.
I think there's just enough little elements in there that could make it happen. Oh, yeah, that's my prediction. Try and remember that in 10 months' time.
I like that. I like that one. That is bold. And I'm going to ask this one as well, because Peter's just asked in chat, how many races will get cancelled this year? I'm going to spin that a little bit. How many races do you reckon we'll see this year, Stuart? I think we will get 23 in. I think we will, but I don't expect it to be the calendar we have. So already it's looking like Bahrain and then Bahrain again. I think we might lose. I think the Netherlands have said they won't let the race go ahead unless fans are there. So if fans can't be allowed, that's off the calendar. So they might double up at Belgium or Italy, for example. Maybe if Canada can't go ahead, perhaps France or Austria would double up. I think we will get to 23, but I don't think it'll be as the calendar is now. We might see a few double up races again.
Yeah, I think they have enough tricks up their sleeve this year to kind of mix, match, and replace if as things get a bit wobbly. If things get a bit wobbly, I think what happened to China in the end? Because last I heard it was postponed, but I can't imagine them shoving it in anywhere.
It's postponed, but where'd you put it?
Yeah,
Christmas Day.
When they said that, it was like, oh, so we got 24 races now technically, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. I'm gonna. I think we might not get to 23. I think we might be at a 22. Try as they might to kind of fill in the gaps. I think they might have to make a sacrifice depending. I can't tell you where, but I think 22. But I think it will be basically a full season. I don't think we're going to end up anything like last year.
What about you, Dan?
I'm thinking along similar lines as you guys. I think Formula One are pretty intent on starting the season as soon as they can and with as many races as they can, just get them under their belt. And it wouldn't massively surprise me if we had 2 Bahrains at the start of the year and at the end of the year, like similar to kind of what we saw last year. Maybe a couple of Silverstones. There'll definitely be changes along the way. So I'll go 22 to be slightly different.
So to be slightly different, you said the same as Stuart.
Yeah, but I
in a different way.
In a different way, yeah.
I think there's sort of coming back to what you were saying at the beginning about, some countries have like quarantine restrictions and a waiting period and isolate and all that. The second half of the season, we are banking on being able to go from country to country to country to country. And if, the way we're dealing with COVID and stuff hasn't developed as well as we hoped, they may have to cut that down a bit and put more gaps in between races. We still have a lot of unknowns, beyond the next month. So, I mean, I'm hoping, obviously, that that the optimistic calendar can go ahead, because that obviously means that a lot of good things are happening in the world. But we still have to. Like, for example, Saudi Arabia, I think, are very tight on their regulations, and they are just 1 week after Australia, which, if things aren't so great, might not be good.
I'm hopeful. It's all I can say, and I think everybody on this planet is clinging to the word hope right now. I'm hopeful that by the time we get to Saudi Arabia, things are going to be very much on the up and the vaccines kicking in and things are picking up. But the problem is, if 2020 has taught us anything, not just in life, but in Formula One as well, you just never bloody know, do you? At the minute, it's such a, the phrase, it's a fluid situation. I hate that phrase so much, but it is. So it's probably going to change quite a bit. But yeah, we've got full circle. Have we ever done that on a stream before? No.
It's very satisfying, isn't it?
It is. It's lovely. So I feel like the perfect time to wrap it up. Thank you very much, Dan. I'll start at the top. Thank you very much, Dan, for popping along for this one, mate. Pleasure as always, and I'm sure we'll talk a few times over the next. Will it be 9 months when the season really kicks in? Testing, car launch is just a couple of weeks away now, so yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think you can probably tell. So thanks for having me, mate. The season feels like it's getting underway now. This is the starting point, ladies and gents. So hopefully Lance wins his Grand Prix. And those in chat, I'm not going to be a Lance Stroll fan this year. I'm not turning into that. I'll save that for Ellie. But no, as always, dude, thank you for having me.
No worries, mate. Thank you for coming on. And to you as well, Stuart. Great to have a natter. I know we did the predictions thing, the four of us, few weeks back, but it still feels like forever since we properly sat down and just talked nonsense for an hour and a half. Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully we'll get a good one this year, even if the drivers and constructors go the way we think they will.
Even if the top of things are like that. There'll definitely be a lot going on in race to race and in the middle. This was a great chat. It actually got me excited about the season ahead. So yeah, great. I look forward to it happening. Cheers.
Yeah, let's just get on with it now. Let's stop talking and get on with it. Yeah, thank you to both of you, and I'm sure I'll talk to you at some point soon. It's been a pleasure. Thank you to Stuart and to Dan then. Like I say, thank you to you guys in chat for popping along too. I know how to clap there. Why not? Just applause that I got through it. It's been a while since we've been live. Great to talk to you all. Good to see you're all well too and ready for this season. Don't forget to drop a like on the stream. Massively appreciate it. 509 watching. Definitely the virtual GP's finished then. So please do drop a like. Thank you so much as well to everyone who's contributed tonight, and especially to Charles Edward Cheese for that massive donation too. Hugely appreciated once again. Yeah, that's about it for this one. I will be back soon with another video. It'll be in the week, of course. Obviously now, for anyone, I've had a couple of people moan at me that I'm not putting enough content out. Entitled much and all that, but yeah, the content will now start to ramp up as it always does with the season approaching. January is always quiet, beginning of February a little bit quiet, and then we get going for car launches testing. You'll be flat out from that McLaren launch on the 15th, and you'll be sick of me. You'll be sick of me by the middle of April if you're not already. So yeah, lots of content coming out over the course of this season. Always, don't forget to subscribe as well if you're new. And like I say, drop a like on the stream as well. You can follow me on social media too. Links to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and all of that are in the description. And as well as a link to Dan's channel and to Stuart's as well. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.